Hello. Um, so this is a kind of an impromptu video I'm making here. Not even sure if it's a good idea to do it, but because I'm feeling raw, and I'm feeling angry, and I'm feeling upset, and a great need to want to be busy. This maybe this is a good outlet. Who knows? So from the title, obviously, a tragedy. That's kind of what happened, and it's kind of struck me that this is the kind of time faith gets tested, and kind of in my own trying to deal with what's happened. It's some amount of this, faith kicking in. Maybe I'll explain that more clearly. Now, I tossed up whether I should say what happened, because I don't want this to be like a personal sort of like, oh, look at me, woe is me. But then it's sort of so I won't go into detail, but I feel like I have to say what did happen just for context, because maybe things I say, because like this is not scripted, so maybe something I say further down won't make sense without the specific context. So I want to keep it brief, and then kind of get into what the actual kind of topic of the video is. But just this context of I'm here right now, and this is part of faith, is these times of doubt and testing, and and also I know when I say it, it's going to be one of these things that some people think is stupid, and maybe this is just because of the way I'm feeling right now, but I don't really care about those people's opinion. If you think this is stupid, then that's something wrong with you. You need some more empathy. You need to understand, even if this is something that wouldn't bother you, it's something that heavily weighs on a lot of people, and it's affecting me right now, and it's affecting my family right now. What happened was, our cat was murdered, basically. I think that's it. I think that's all the detail I need. It was not. It wasn't like an accident with a car. It was someone. It was a physical attack. It was an actual attack, and they showed no remorse. I think that's all the detail I need. I don't want to go into any more than that. I don't want to name any names, but that's. So this is, like I say, some people can think that's stupid, but this is a cherished family member, a beloved family member. Just because they're smaller, they don't speak English, whatever. It's part of the family. It's been with the family for so many years. It is a bereavement, and we're in mourning. So, and that's kind of what brings me to this topic today: tragedy. I've called it a tragedy rather than what is normally called the problem of evil, the problem of suffering. But this is this next level up. Suffering might sound too small. Evil might sound too vague. Tragedy is a big thing. So this is a personal tragedy. Obviously this isn't the sinking of the Titanic or something like, which that is a tragedy, and that's more widespread. So maybe these thoughts apply there as well for the individual families involved. But so this has happened, and the initial instinct is that it was absolutely senseless, pointless. Why did this happen? This didn't need to happen. This shouldn't have happened. No good has come of this. And I get that. There's no worldly good that comes of this. Nobody wins anything. Nobody learns any lessons. Nobody is stronger for it. It's just a loss. And that's it. And this, in a way, this is where the problem of evil has strength, is that this is how you feel. It's a loss with no more to it. And absolutely, that's valid, that's fine. But and I think this is where things like where Christians will say, it's down to free will and it's down to soul building. It doesn't land, it doesn't really work to explain it when you're there, because you feel like, no, I didn't learn anything from this, nobody learned anything from this, nobody gained from this, nobody grew from this. There was no there was no silver lining to this cloud. It's all negative. But then that's very biblical. It's what the Bible is teaching this. This is like Paul said. Well, I'm not going to quote him. I'm going to paraphrase because I'm not going to remember the exact quote. Our short lives on this earth are insignificant next to the eternity in paradise in heaven. It's just like a little blip. This comes and goes. It feels like a long time now we're in it, obviously. It feels like that's all there is now we're in it. But if heaven's real, if eternal paradise is real, this is going to be nothing next to that. So you put it in that framework, it changes things. Before, we were in the framework of this is the world. Something senseless happened, something pointless happened, something that was just pure wrong happened, and that's the end of it. So you can understand the problem of evil being a problem for people when you've got it in that box. But when you take that box and put it into this infinitely larger box, you compare it to when a doctor gives you a needle injection. That's like 1 second out of your life to stop you from... You have that moment of pain, the rest of your life you're protected from some virus or whatever. That's the comparison the Bible tries to make. But at the same time, it doesn't minimalize, it doesn't trivialize the pain and the suffering. It doesn't say, oh hey, get over it, which maybe that analogy with the doctor sounds like. Hey, get over the pinprick, it only lasted a second, what are you complaining for? It doesn't do that. It does make a point of it. The whole book of Job is all about it. The whole Bible's about it. Jesus himself in the Garden of Gethsemane, he knew what he had to do, and he was saying, I don't think I want to do this. This is a lot. Can we think of another way? But for all the reasons of the theodicies and so on, this is how it has to be. I think I've explained these theodicies elsewhere. Lots of other people explain the theodicies elsewhere. Like I mentioned a couple there: free will, soul building, the free choice, informed choice. I think that's important. You need to be able to see the good and the evil, so you can make an informed choice between them. All these things. What was the point I was trying to make? They don't really get to the heart of it when you're in pain, but that's why the Bible fully acknowledges that pain, and Christianity is probably the only religion, well I suppose Judaism would count because they're very connected, it's the only religion where God himself comes down and partakes in that pain, instead of being this aloof, distant figure, transcendent above it all and just watching as we go through it. He embodies humanity and comes and shares in it with us and says, I'm going to do this with you. And that changes things a lot. So I think why the problem of evil is so powerful is the pain it causes, the pain that evil causes, not the problem itself, the pain that suffering causes. And when you put suffering into this box and you think this box is all that exists, and if you're a non-believer, if you're an atheist, you don't have that bigger box. All you have is the small box. So the pain, meaningless pain in this only reality, that's a big deal. So I think it's because believers and non-believers are kind of looking at the same problem with different lenses. Non-believers have the kind of the narrower, yeah, this is the only life we've got, we've got to do the best we can with it, whereas believers have, this life is setting us up for something better, and so you can look at it through that lens. So the senseless things in this life don't weigh so much when this is just a small part. And I have said before as well, I don't believe there is such a thing as unnecessary suffering or pain in this, when you put it into this larger scheme of things. But I'm seeing this, if you don't have the larger scheme, if you don't have the theistic view, if you don't have the afterlife view, you don't have any of that, then it's so much heavier, and it's going to be very difficult to shake that, even with some kind of mental understanding of, heaven's a good thing. It's just trying to make that connection between why pain now and what's the point of it. Why don't we just go straight to the good bit, all of that, which is something again I've talked about in other places. I think this is what this video is supposed to be about. Like I say, this isn't scripted, and I think this video is partly therapeutic for myself rather than trying to make any points. I don't know. But like I say, so free will be part of it. There's the person's choice to attack, and if God threw up a force field, then there would be no consequences to them doing a violent thing. So we don't learn consequences, and we don't see evil. And if we don't see evil, we don't get our free choice between looking at good and looking at evil and saying, I want to be a good person because I don't like that. And there's also this idea of justice. Justice is important to God. And that's hard to square when you see things that seem pointless. So now I'm in a position where I want to see justice done. It's not revenge. Revenge would be... this is an interesting... Revenge and justice can look very similar, but one of them is coming from a dark place, and one of them is coming from, we need to redress this balance and make things right again. And obviously we can't undo the damage that's been done. That's impossible here in this small box. But we can try to do something to not allow the perpetrator to get away with it, to show them the error. And I think that might be showing the error is justice, whereas revenge would just be, okay, they hurt us, let's hurt them. And nobody learns anything. It becomes this endless perpetuation of they hurt them, they back and forth, mafia wars, like, oh, they hit us, so we got to hit them back. Oh, they hit us, so we got to hit them back. That's revenge. Justice is about, it goes out of balance, you bring it back into balance again. And that's what I'm looking for, because at the moment it's a case of, damn it, harm has been done, and the guy's just going on with his life as if nothing happened. So that's a problem. And now then, we may never see justice in the small box, but in the big box we are promised justice. We're promised every tear will be wiped away. We're promised paradise, no pain, no more sin, no more temptation to sin. We're promised our dark sides will be cleansed away, and we will be purified, and all we'll want to do is be good because we've chosen it. We're not made completely good. We're not, from day one, we weren't made by God to be these kind of puppets that just love him, because that's impossible. You can't love someone without kind of choosing it. You can't be programmed to love. That's not, if you're programmed to love, that's not real love. It has to be a choice. It has to be your own, coming from you, not enforced. So that's another part of this whole choice of good and evil, choice of God and whatever the alternative is. All of this stuff together, this is what it is about in Christianity. And I think people that are not maybe atheists in particular or agnostics kind of bundle a lot of faiths together with their beliefs. So I'm generalizing there obviously, but there's this idea that if you're a religious person, then you've just picked a set of rules that you want to follow, and you have to follow those rules, and then you get to heaven because those rules dictate you being a good person. And that's not the way it is in Christianity. Christianity is more about, yeah, it's got loads of rules in it, but they're kind of, I don't want to say guidelines, because that's a bit to the other way of, they don't really count, because they do count, but there's the danger of taking them too hyper literally a lot of the time, which is what Jesus talks about in the New Testament. He talks to the Pharisees and so on. The Pharisees, Jesus is doing something, the Pharisees say, you can't do that, it's in the scripture. And he says, if you read the scripture properly, it says I can do this, but you're taking it way too literally. You're taking the letter of the law rather than the meaning of the law. Because what Christianity is about is what's in your heart, your intention. So this is why there's a lot of idea of like, oh, Christianity punishes you for thought crimes. It's like, it's not quite that either. It's more, if you intend to do harm, then that means you're a bad person. If you intend to do good, then that means you're a good person. And generally, if you intend to do good, you'll probably produce the good fruit, as they call it. You might make mistakes, you might accidentally do things wrong, but at least you had the good intention. And I mean, that's a whole debate as well, like, oh, good intentions pave the way to hell or whatever. I think that's a phrase. But it is more about, are you trying your best? Are you trying to learn? Are you trying to grow? Are you trying to help people? Are you trying to give? And all the rules are about, like, here's how you do that. Here's some rules that will help you do that. But it's more about, and this is how, in the Old Testament there's about 600 laws, and then they whittle them down to the 10 commandments, and they whittle those down to the 3 commandments. And then in the New Testament, Jesus says there are only 2 rules you need to live by, and then that even gets whittled down to 1, the golden rule: do unto others as you would have done unto yourself. So basically that 1 rule is meant to sum up the 600, and if you're doing that one, you're probably going to do the other 600 by accident, except the ceremony and all, because those are necessary. But so I've very much sort of lost my train of thought. But I think, yeah, this is the thing. I'm explaining that this is right now is a test of faith, because the instinct is this is senseless, and senselessness can't exist. And I've always said that understanding what the Bible teaches is important early on, because you want to understand this stuff before you get into a tragedy. You want to understand this stuff before your faith is tested. Because if your faith is tested and it's built on the house of sand, it's going to crumble. But it's built on the house of rock, and it's, well, you know, this is we're in the storm, but my house is strong. I understand the theodicies. I know what it's about to some extent. So even though now I'm in the storm, the faith will still stand. But yeah, if you build on the house of sand, you think that God is this safety blanket that's going to put protective bubbles up around you every time something dangerous happens. He's never going to show you anything scary, anything dangerous. I don't know why you've got that idea. it's not biblical. All the biblical heroes go through trouble, and they talk about how they get through it and overcome it. Even Jesus himself. You read the book of Acts and Paul's letters, and the things Paul went through, stoned and beaten and shipwrecked and imprisoned and finally executed. It's not plain sailing just because you believe in Jesus. If you believe in the prosperity gospel, if you believe in I believe in Jesus, and therefore I'm going to be rich and healthy and happy for the rest of my life, you are listening to a false gospel. It's just not in the Bible. The Bible says the opposite. Jesus even says, "Follow me, and you will be persecuted." It's not hidden. It's not a secret. It's ridiculous. So I think I've covered that. I mean, and I've covered it before in other talks about the problem of evil and suffering and so on, because I do think the problem of evil is a terrible argument, and I'll explain why. And I think that's why I'm doing this right now, is this idea of have that understanding before you get, because when you're in a problem, when you're in a difficult situation and you're looking for answers, they just don't land. They feel so wishy-washy because you're in pain, and it doesn't matter what anyone says. It doesn't matter how logical or rational or anything it is when you're in pain. You're just in pain, and that's what you know, and that's what matters, and you want something to fix it. Whereas it's like this idea of prevention is better than a cure. So understanding the theology, the theodicies, the reasons, is prevention. It's like the vaccine, but the vaccine's no good after you've caught the disease. You have to have the vaccine before the disease. If you've got the disease, the vaccine's not going to help you. You need some other kind of medication, and so that's what this is about. The problem with evil is a useless argument, but that's because we've got a vaccine. I'm not entirely sure how well we'd want a cure. I think I say we. I think me maybe. I know there are other teachers out there who are good at the pastoral side of things. John Lennox talks about Auschwitz, and he's a great speaker, and I think he's got that kind of way of being able to talk to people when they're in pain. So he's great for that. But it's two different. I think that analogy. A vaccine solves the problem better than having it afterwards, because the cure doesn't work all the time. So that's that. I think I won't go on any more about that. I think I've covered that. I did, however, and I forgot to pull up the thing I was going to pull up. Can I do that quickly? Because this is a loss of an animal, a cat, beloved family member. Where is it? This is the other side of my own personal. There it is. Dealing with it is. I do believe we will see our pets again in heaven. Oh crumbs! Don't do that. And I'm gonna, once I find these notes I made years ago, because like I say, this is not scripted, this is not planned. I did think I should pull this up, and then I forgot to pull it up before I turned the camera on. What page is it on? That one. So this is only some brief notes, I believe. Anyway, there's not much to it, but I do think we'll see our pets again in heaven. So this guy here is called Hugh Ross. You may know who he is. He's an astrophysicist and a theologian, to some extent a Christian speaker, apologist. He's also autistic, which I discovered recently. Maybe that should have been obvious. But yeah, he's a really smart guy, and what he says. I'm not sure. I think I agree with it in principle, but not. I might be about to misrepresent him anyway, so I might be disagreeing with a misrepresentation. And his view is more nuanced. So, but he says animals do have souls. I'm going to come back to that in a sec. Animals do have spirits, but they're different to ours because there's kind of, there's God is the top, and then we are below God, and then animals are under our dominion. So there's like smaller souls or something like that. But they've got different kind of souls. So herbivores are intended to be our food. So maybe they don't have spirits at all. And carnivores. Now this is where I think maybe not all carnivores, but I think he says all carnivores. But maybe this is where I'd have to double check what he exactly says. I'm misremembering. He says carnivores are meant to be our companions, so their souls are somewhat similar, not similar to ours, but closer to ours, because we're supposed to be able to bond and work together, and so on. So that kind of biblically makes it okay. We can eat the herbivores, and the carnivores are either we avoid them or we make friends with them. So I think that's kind of his take on it, which makes some sense. So I need to come back to souls and why I said soul, and I always do this, even though I never mean it. And I think I'm on the fringe on this a little bit with this view, but I also think it is more of a traditional view as well, is that the definition of soul, most people today, soul and spirit are interchangeable words. But I think I'm also an English teacher, and one thing we know is that there are no words in English that are perfect synonyms. That is, there are no two words in English that mean exactly the same thing, because if there were, we wouldn't need to. We get rid of one. Things like big and large and giant and stuff. They all generally mean like something vast in size, but they're like different levels of it. So, like huge is bigger than big, and so on. So, and then sometimes it's formal and informal. So soul and spirit. We've got these two words that people tend to use as if they were perfect synonyms. So what's the difference? Now the way I take it, and I didn't just then because I slipped, and I'm doing the thing everyone does in using them interchangeably, which I shouldn't. What it should be is spirit plus body equals soul. So you don't have a soul, you are a soul. And now how that works is different views on that. I think they'd all be called types of dualism. So there's now I think the biblical view is your soul is like your life essence. Your spirit. I keep just doing it even though I'm trying to explain it. That your spirit is like your life essence. And your body is the material stuff, and so the material stuff needs the life essence to be animated, but the spirit needs the material stuff to kind of be able to engage with anything. What's the word? Codependent, independent, interdependent. One of those is good and one of those is bad, but I think it depends on what context you're using it. If you're using it in relationships, but basically, one doesn't work without the other. Whereas some other views would be that, which I think this view comes from Gnosticism, which would make it a heresy, but I think this is actually quite a prevalent view generally, is that you are your spirit, and I think this is why soul and spirit have become interchangeable. You are your spirit, and your body is like a vehicle that your spirit drives around. So you're not your body, you're your spirit, and your body is like a tool. So I think that's Gnostic, as I've been told. So it's supposed to be they're very much connected on a fundamental level. You can't once they're separated. That's why you die, and this is why traditionally they would say something like 200 souls were lost at sea. They're not talking about ghosts. They're talking about living people. That's because the living person is no longer living. So you've lost the soul. The spirit could have gone to heaven or whatever. The body, whatever. You lost the soul. You haven't lost the spirit. You haven't necessarily. The body might be out there somewhere. Um, so we I think we believe that animals have these spirits, but they're kind of on a lower level, so that they can be under our dominion, and they can be our companions. Now I don't know if this is all animals, because there's also this idea out there that because we take things under our dominion, it could be that once a pet joins the family, so let's say it joins a spiritual family, then it kind of earns a spirit for itself. It begets a spirit because it's now part of this family. So I'm not saying that's biblical. I'm saying that's a view that's out there, and maybe that makes sense of things. Like, so if you've got wild animals, they don't have spirits, but if they become a part of the human family, then they earn one. That's a possibility. But anyway, whatever it is, whether they're born with a spirit or whether they earn one, the Bible does seem to teach that animals have spirits. It's this word, if I remember correctly, nephesh, which during the creation story, humans are given nephesh and animals are given nephesh, which seems to show that they have spirits. Now I can look at my notes. I did quite well off the top of my head there. Yeah, animals appear in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve, and the Garden of Eden is described as good, and it's supposed to be this picture of what heaven is going to be like. So if this is the picture of heaven before heaven actually exists, it's got animals in it. So if pre-heaven has animals in it, why doesn't real heaven probably should as well? In Revelation 19:14, the armies of heaven are said to ride horses. So these horses could be symbolic because it's in Revelation, but they could be real. And if so, then the armies of heaven have got horses. That means horses are in heaven. It could be that humans are the fallen creature, and so because animals are under our dominion, if humans are saved, animals get saved because they're with us. They don't need their own salvation, they just come with us. There's the various rules about what animals we can and can't eat, and that's got something to do with, like Dr. Hugh Ross was saying, we can eat the herbivores, we can't eat the carnivores because they've got different jobs. So the ones that we're supposed to bond with, maybe they have spirits, but the ones we can eat don't, and that means that's why it's okay to eat them, because they don't have this kind of transcendent level to them. So some of this is a bit speculative, but I think overall we've got a good reason to believe animals, or it tells us animals have a spirit of some kind, and I think there's enough there to say that those spirits will go on into the afterlife. You know, the lion will lay down with the lamb, which again is it's the wolf and the lamb, isn't it? Again, that's something that gets misquoted all the time, and I can't remember which way I've misquoted it. It's either the lion or the wolf, probably the wolf. But yeah, that's there's animal imagery in heaven, and this I quite like this. Are not two sparrows sold for a penny? Yet not one of them will fall to the ground apart from the will of your Father. And even the hairs of your head are all numbered. So don't be afraid, you are worth more than many sparrows. So it's talking about how okay, sorry, that's Matthew 10:29, but in Luke 12 it says it slightly differently. Are not 5 sparrows sold for 2 pennies, yet not one of them is forgotten by God? That's what I was looking for. So not even the sparrows are forgotten by God. God is aware of the sparrows, he thinks of the sparrows, so maybe he's going to save the sparrows. So yes, so there is some comfort there in feeling that I'm going to see him again one day. And it doesn't stop the pain now, it doesn't stop us missing him now, it doesn't stop us feeling like it's senseless now. And it's a small comfort because it's hope. I mean, it could be a long way off. but it's there. And I think my final point really is that all of this stuff is biblically taught, and just because I'm going through a painful time now, it's not a reason to lose faith. This is a time that faith is supposed to be there. This is what it's for. This is why God is called the Comforter. Something awful has happened, and it's the belief in God, the trust in God, that stops the pain from making us do something stupid, whatever that may be. I'm not talking about myself specifically here. Other people, the way they handle things is different, and I'll leave that up to your imagination what they would do, whether it's revenge or whatever. So I'm just gonna. I think I'll close it off there. Small prayer for our beloved lost ones, that we will see them again, and that although we miss them, there's no pain for them right now, and from their perspective, we'll be with them again in no time. And that is a comfort. Amen.